All right, welcome. It's Monday, and I'm here. I'm Tom Carnell. I'm here with a bunch of reviews and recommendations for the beginning of your week. As a reminder, I was a buyer for Tower Records and a ton of record stores for a couple of decades. I was a publisher, a writer, a journalist. I'm now an author. You can go to my Amazon page. We've been over this before. Remember to watch this video to the end because it helps with the algorithm. And if you have a product you want me to talk about, or you want to talk about something offline, go ahead and email me at tomcarnell@gmail.com. We're going to get started as we usually do with some movie recommendations. The first one, 1970. This is available on Tubi, and I highly recommend all of these films. This one is called La Noche del Terror CIEGO, aka Tombs of the Blind Dead. It's directed by Armando de Osorio. He did like 3 or 4 of these things. This one stars Lone Fleming, Cesar Berner, and Maria Elena Apron. This is a great cheeseball film. There's a lot to laugh at with this film, but there's an awful lot to love. Synopsis is as follows. Medieval knights executed for their black magic rituals come back as zombies to torment a group of vacationing college kids. Thing is, these zombies are not so much zombies as just literally reanimated corpses. They're rotting, they're blind, hence the title. And the only way that they can get their prey is by listening, by hearing them. And of course, these college kids make a ton of noise. They can't just stand there and be quiet. They've got to whimper, they've got to cry, they've got to scream, they've got to sigh. Anything that they shouldn't do to draw attention to someone who can't see them and can only hear them, they do. I love these films. I wish that there was more. There's been a couple of attempts at doing more of these, but they always fall flat, either because of budget or because of talent. But yeah, these things are so great. They're very, very 70s. They're very, very cheesy, but oh God, they're so great. They're creepy, actually scary at times, silly in others, like I say. The effects on not only the Templar Knights themselves, but even the horses. The horses are super creepy, and there's all these sequences that are like dreamlike. They're absolutely wonderful. I will undoubtedly cover the rest of the films in this series at some point. I especially love the second one, but they're all great. One small thing I found out that was kind of weird was that this film was renamed at one point Revenge from Planet Ape. It has nothing to do with apes. It has nothing to do with Planet of the Apes, but they renamed it that for a short period in order to capitalize on the Planet of the Apes craze. Again, Tombs of the Blind Dead, 1970. It's available on Tubi. What are you waiting for? Second film, this is from 2012. It's also available on Tubi. I think all of these are available on Tubi. This is a really interesting film called The Bay. It stars Will Rogers, not that Will Rogers, Kristen Connolly, and a bunch of other people. It's about chaos that breaks out in a small Maryland town after an ecological disaster. Here's the thing. It's an environmental horror film directed in the 2012s, directed by Barry Levinson, who did things like Rain Man, Avalon. He did The Natural. Like, this is an Oscar-winning director making what is essentially a low-budget kind of cheeseball horror film. It's genuinely unnerving in its implications. I mean, there's gore in this film. It has to do with, if you're familiar with, in science class, they talked about these bugs that go into a fish's mouth and eat its tongue and then replace it, so it just sits in the bottom of their mouth and kind of scavenges off what the fish eats. It's that, but in people. And it's really creepy. It harkens back to the 70s environmental horror films, but it's so well made, and it's so solid in its science that who knew? But it's there. The Bay. Highly recommended. I don't hear people talking about this, which kind of bums me out even when they're talking about environmental horror films. But this is a great, great horror film, and I highly recommend it. Speaking of 1973, this is also available on Tubi. It's directed by Douglas Wilcox. It's Theater of Blood, starring Vincent Price, Diana Rigg, Ian Hendry, and a host of other people. It has to do with a Shakespearean actor who takes poetic revenge on critics who denied him recognition. It's darkly comedic. It's a classic film. Both Vincent Price and Diana Rigg have said that they named this film as one of their favorites in their filmography. Price met his wife, Coral Brown, on this film, which I thought was kind of wild. Rigg's character, Edwina Booth, was named after John Wilkes Booth. An interesting side note that both Riggs and Vincent Price starred as the hosts of PBS's mystery series. This is a favorite of mine. It's made around the time of things like the Dr. Phibes films and a lot of it's just after the Corman period. It's great stuff. The deaths that he inflicts on these people are oddly tied to their personality and who they are, and it's absolutely wonderful. Excuse me. I recommend this film. I can't believe that I'm recommending it on the show because I've always just thought it was in everyone's parlance. But talking with some people, I found out they didn't even know what this was. So, Theater of Blood. Let's see. After that, 2010, this is also available on Tubi. The original title, ANGMAREUL BOATDA, aka I Saw the Devil. It's directed by Kim Ji-woon. It stars Lee Byung-hyun, Choi Min-sik, Jeon Kuk-hwan. I apologize for those mispronunciations, but it's written by the director and Park Hoon-jung. It's about a secret agent whose wife is murdered by a serial killer, and he takes vicious revenge. So much so it's almost like beating the guy almost to death, letting him recover, and then beating him to death again. This and there's another movie called The Chaser are based on someone called Yoo Young-chul, who was also known as the Raincoat Killer in Korea. This is a fantastic serial killer film, and the hunt for a serial killer. It starts to blur the lines between who's more vicious, the serial killer or the cop chasing him, because this cop really deals out some punishment to this guy. It's a great, great film. And again, doesn't get talked about a lot. In certain circles it does. It's one of my flag films if we're talking about serial killer crime dramas. If someone mentions it, I know that they are at least have gone beyond the surface level. So I Saw the Devil, great stuff. And lastly, as far as films go, 1967, this is also on Tubi. It's called VVIY. It is directed by Konstantin Urshov, Georgy Kropatchev, Alexander Ptushko. Stars a host of people from the country, I think it's Poland. Don't quote me on that. It's about a young priest who is ordered to preside over the wake of a witch in a small wooden church in a remote village. This means spending 3 nights alone with a corpse with only his faith to protect him. This is a moody, and it's creepy, and there's almost a Maria Bava-esque use of color. It's very dreamlike. It's very disturbing, and it's wonderful. It took me a while to be able to get my hands on that. I was just talking with a friend of mine, Sean Lewis, about how back in the tape trading days, there were films that we would hear about. This is one of them. We would hear about, and then we'd try to find them through tape traders, and you'd get them for like $20 on a VHS. And there were things just whispered about, films that, you know, you had to see, you had to track down, and you were assured of them being far and away better than, and more and cooler than anything that was playing in theaters. Now, flash forward to today, they're all available on Tubi. Crazy. This is a great film. It's very cool, especially if you're into Eastern European horror films. And yeah, VIY, I want to say. But again, it's wonderful. Moving on to books. We're going to start with the 1938 book by Joseph W. Campbell called Who Goes There? It's famous for mainly because it inspired the 50s, The Thing from Another World, and it inspired John Carpenter's The Thing. The synopsis reads as follows. An Antarctic research camp discovers and thaws an ancient frozen body of a crash-landed alien. The creature revives with terrifying results, shape-shifting to assume the exact form of animal and man alike. Paranoia ensues as the frightened men work to discern friend from foe. Almost every We're Trapped in Here with a Monster film that followed this book is inspired by this book. It's great. I do have a place in my heart for John Carpenter's The Thing. But if you're a completist and you've seen The Thing from Another World, you might as well pick this up. You can get it on a Kindle for like $1 or $2. Very well written, very moody. But again, it's worth reading, absolutely worth reading. But I do think John Carpenter's The Thing has a more solid punch, if you follow me there. Up next, 1912. Again, I told you, in order to understand what's happening in genre now, you got to go back. And the further you go back, the more you get to the seeds of things that are important, that sort of have echoed forward as copies become copies. This is H. Bedford Jones. It's a book called The Cross and the Hammer. It's about two Viking boys and a girl who end up going on a big adventure and grow up on boats, and high adventure ensues. I liked it, reading it. I liked it. Again, you can get it on Kindle for a song. It's in the end, I felt like it was essentially a YA, a young adult book. It's very much like kids on an adventure, in over their head, but they rise to the occasion, and it's very, high seas and Viking stuff. Enjoyable. It's good for to give to your kids. There's not a lot of bloodshed. There's not a lot of gore there or monsters. It's mostly just, bad people being vanquished by good people. Great stuff. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Up next, 2019. This book, The Survival of Margaret Thomas. It's written by Del Howison. Del used to run Dark Delicacies in Los Angeles, which was a preeminent horror store. I did signings there. Him and his wife Sue are lovely people. This book is fantastic. It's a Western novel about a woman seeking justice after her sheriff husband is murdered in front of her, forcing her to embark on a perilous journey across the 19th century American West to confront his killer. It's very much a Western. It's beautifully told. It's very much revenge-driven, but there's more. There's a harrowing sequence in the middle when a town burns down. That's absolutely fantastic. By the way, sidebar, I just saw a trailer film in the past couple of episodes, a few episodes back. I reviewed Stuart Onan's A Prayer for the Dying, and they're making a movie. And it's going to be out sometime soon, and I'm very excited about that. But Del Howison's book, The Survival of Margaret Thomas, is fantastic. I highly, highly, highly recommend you going out and grabbing that. And then we're going to wind up, we're not winding up, but second to last winding up, 2022, Nikolas Robinson, who is a wonderful writer, did a book called Beneath the Unspoiled Darkness. The synopsis is an extreme horror novel about 5 college students on a camping trip in Southwest Washington who get lost in a remote forest with a bloody history, encountering monstrous threats and then uncovering a secret. Fantastic. This does have gore in it. This does have lots of murders in it. It reminded me very much of a Friday the 13th film or The Hills Have Eyes in prose. Very cool. Well worth checking out. Again, you can get it on Kindle for like $10, something like that. And all of Nikolas's books are great. I've read a few of his short story collections. Undoubtedly, I'll get to one of those. But he's a wonderful writer and a good guy, and deserves your support. Lastly, I'm still reading Jack Ketchum's Peaceable Kingdom. I like it. Again, anthologies are difficult to talk about because on one hand, they're a collection. So, you're going to get some, as I like to say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some things work, some things don't. This one, for the most part, most of the stories work. There's a couple that are a couple of clunkers, but hey, even I in my books, there's some clunkers. Although I love them still as my own children. Moving on to records. Let's start here. Zbigniew Namyslowski, say that 10 times fast. A sax, flute, cello, and trombone player, and a group called Air Condition doing a record from 1980 called Follow Your Kite. This is again, you can go in the description of this video and there'll be a link to a YouTube playlist that you can hear the whole record for yourself. This is jazz fusion. It's very tight and accomplished. The sax is kind of sleazy sounding, but I mean that in a really good way. Reminded me of things like David Sanborn, Michael Brecker, Bob Berg, the great Tom Scott. You getting it? You know what I mean? It's good stuff. It's Polish jazz, which, who knew that there was a whole subgenre of that, but there is. Michael Urbaniak was a name that comes to mind. It's great stuff. If you like fusion, if you like jazz fusion, you're going to love this. Again, it's called Follow Your Kite, and the artist is Zbigniew Namyslowski. Up next, 1976. This is a record called Live and in Living Color. It's by the mighty Tower of Power. This was recorded at the Sacramento Memorial Auditorium, and it features one of the tightest bands you'll ever hear in your entire life. These guys are cooking on all burners. One of the greatest live records ever. People always say like Peter Frampton and that kind of nonsense. I think some of the greatest live records are, again, off the top of my head, is this one. Humble Pie in Performance is a great live record. And we'll go with that. Herbert Tubbs, who does the vocals on it, specifically on their version of You're Still a Young Man, is jaw-dropping. The guy is soulful and deep and rich, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I did learn that Dave Garibaldi, who's, I think, one of the greatest drummers of all time, people always throw Neil Peart's name up, which admittedly he deserves to be on that top 10 list, but Dave Garibaldi shines. Someday I'll have to do that, a list of drummers drummers, and then do another one of guitar players and what have you, and greatest of all time. I'll make a note of that. This record reminded me a lot of things like Average White Band, the Crusaders, Graham Central Station, the Meters, Sly and the Family Stone, and the JBs. If you've heard the JBs, you should. They were James Brown's backup band, and they're one of the funkiest and amazing bands of all time. The version of What Is Hip on this record just cooks, and yeah, you'll love it. Trust me on this one. Let's see, up next, 1993. The artist's name is Alio Die. Alio, and then DIE. The record's called Under a Holy Ritual. The artist, aka, is Stefano Musso. He's an Italian composer. The music is similar to Indian raga, where an entire composition is based on one note to begin with, like a drone, and then they sort of add things on top of that. It's spatial and it's vivid. It's a terrific record for meditation and for dozing after imbibing, if you know what I'm saying. It was one of the first records when we were decided to do Carpe Noctem. It was one of the first records I picked up to do some research, to get the vibe, and I've loved it ever since. It reminds one of things like Vidna of Manna, who's a great ambient artist, Robert Rich, Jeff Grenke, and Tom Brennan. This is a great record. Again, a lot of people, when talking about ambient music, don't talk about Alio DA, but Jesus, it's so good. Yeah, give it a shot. Moving on to something completely different. This is 1970. The band is from Sweden. They're a prog band called Samla's Mama's Manna. The record is called MALTID. It's fair to compare this band, and especially this record, to Frank Zappa. It's not funny Frank Zappa. It's more like technical, weird, challenging Frank Zappa. The group was one of the founding members of something called Rock in Opposition. It was a group of musicians that were rallying against the music industry because they would ignore certain acts. Those groups included people like Henry Cow, and you'll get why they were probably ignored by traditional record producers. Henry Cow, Universe Zero, Stormy Six, Etron Fu Lubin, and then later the Art Bears, Art Zoid, and Aksak Mabul. If you know anything about Henry Cow or the Art Bears, Henry Kaiser, Fred Frith, that kind of thing, you know what I'm talking about. It's erratic, it's challenging, but boy, Samla's Mama's Manna is so good. And again, I bring them up not only because I love the band and I love this record, but when people talk about fusion and that kind of thing, and jazz and prog and all of that kind of stuff, I never hear anyone bring this name up. I've heard one person bring it up in recent memory, and that's Scott Lade over at the Prog Corner, which, check him out. Cool dude, and knows his stuff, and breaks it down pretty succinctly. Good stuff. But Samla's Mama's Manna is a great band. Again, what can I say? I highly recommend it. Give it a chance. Stick with it. Don't hear like a minute of it and bail, because it's constantly changing, and it's constantly provoking you and constantly challenging you. And I think in the end, you're going to love this record as much as I do. And then finally, we're going to talk about 2017. The group is called Biosphere, aka Geir Owl Jensen. He's a musician who lives up near the Arctic Circle. The record is called The Petrified Forest. It is based on the 1936 film Petrified Forest with Humphrey Bogart, Bette Davis, and Leslie Howard. The movie is fantastic. It's Humphrey Bogart is a bad guy, a super young Bette Davis, and Leslie Howard is kind of the conscience of the world, and it's great. The music is very chill. It's very relaxing. It features a lot of dialogue snippets that sometimes get repeated like lyrics, and it's great. It's great stuff. It reminded me of things like Gas, Stars of the Lid, Godspeed You Black Emperor, Autechre, Global Communication, and Loscil, Loscil. It's great stuff. I love this record. Whenever I'm stressed, I'll throw this on just to relax and to sort of get my head on straight. And yeah, not much more to say than that. Give it a shot. Again, go to the description. You can find a link. and you can judge for yourself. That's going to about do it. Again, like I say, check out the description for not only links to the music, but also I'm starting to include links to the movie trailer films and links to the Amazon page of the book so that you can pick them up if you'd like. And be sure, I'm doing, over the last, I forgot a couple of episodes, but I'm featuring some of my books. This is one of my books called Horror Book. It is a short story collection. It has a lot of, it has a Tomb of the Blind Dead. I call it Tomb of the Living Dead, but there's Blind Dead stuff in here. There is a story in which the monster is hunger, and I really love this book. I took a lot of guff for the cover, especially since most of my other covers are very pretty, and this is very plain, and it was meant to be. It was coming on the tail. It was just after the 3 Pulp Fiction books, Moonlight Serenades, String of Pearls, and Tuxedo Junction, and I wanted this to be something different, and so that's why I went with the old composition book. So there you have it. I will be back on Wednesday. I got a host of things. I got my notes over here already. I hope you're enjoying the show. I appreciate everyone who's been tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this to your social media if you would. I would very much appreciate it. And we'll keep doing what we're doing. I've got a visit to a book, comic, and record store coming up this weekend. I think it might have already posted, as a matter of fact. Time, it bleeds for me. So other than that, we will see you on Wednesday, and have a good week.